Chording is without a doubt the most efficient form of human-computer interaction in the world. It offers dramatically faster typing speeds, more input options, as well as reduced physical and mental load for all who have mastered its ways. But, despite all these advantages, chording has remained an extremely niche product category. Most people see chording as some sort of kooky witchcraft that barely anyone on the planet can actually learn how to understand and use. And historically speaking, that's really not far off. Chording's been around for over 100 years, and the truth is that there is good reason why it hasn't gone mainstream. In this video, I'm going to be addressing the shortcomings of chording in a brutally honest way. In order for us to appreciate why chording is awesome, it's first important for us to acknowledge and be honest about why chording is awful. When most people think of chording, they think of music. And music would be pretty boring if you were only allowed to play one note at a time. There's only 88 keys on a grand piano, so by introducing chording, now we have billions of possible inputs. And that's when things start to get really interesting. In the same way that chording opens up more possibilities in music, it does the same in human-computer interaction. And I think that's why there's so many people out there that love chording. It's also why there's a lot of people out there who love chording so much that they've fallen into the trap of pretending that it's good for everything when it's just not. You don't want to choose between keys and chords. You really want both of those tools in your tool belt working together because they have a synergetic relationship. They're enhancing one another when they're used together, and that's when things start to get really fun. The first step in our journey will take us back in time to 1868, the year of the typewriter. Wait, a typewriter isn't a chorded input device, is it? No, it is not. But, unlike the modern keyboard we've all come to know and love, the typewriter is subject to staccato tax, the first reason why chording is awful. Staccato tax is an interrupting release as a requirement between sequential inputs. Even with chording disabled, if this keyboard was just a normal, crappy $20 Amazon keyboard, it would still be able to type significantly faster than the typewriter. And the reason for that is staccato tax. If I want to type "the" on a typewriter, it is a physical requirement that I fully release the T before I even begin to press the H. And I don't think people realize how big of a deal this is. If someone was going to try and play a scale on the piano as fast as they possibly could, it will probably sound something like this. But now imagine if there was a special piano that you couldn't press any keys until all the other keys were released. It would sound something like this. It's way slower. It's about twice as slow because releasing a key takes about the same amount of time and effort as pressing a key. So now for any device that is subject to that staccato tax, we can't just look at the strokes or the presses. We also have to consider those interrupting releases. And hopefully this is where it all starts to tie together, because guess what? Just like the typewriter, almost every single form of chording is also subject to staccato tax. Not all strokes are created equal. When a stenographer tells you that I can output an entire syllable in a single stroke, that's true. But what they might leave out is that they also have an interrupting release after every single stroke, and an ordinary typist does not have that. But to be fair, when the stenograph was invented, it was not competing with the modern-day keyboard. It was competing with the typewriter, which also was subject to that staccato tax. If you want to learn more about staccato tax, I go into a lot more detail in this video here, and I even do some different tests and go over some calibration processes that you can use to better understand your own unique diminishing returns as it pertains to chording and when it might make sense for you to just type things in character entry. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that it's wrong to chord only 2 or 3 letters at a time. I'm just saying that it's not really faster. And in some cases, chording can actually be slower than ordinary typing, which is the perfect transition to the second reason why chording is awful. A microchord is just any chorded input that results in an individual output. And this is where the video is going to get really interesting, because we already know microchording is going to be insanely slow due to staccato tax, but there's other factors at play here, and I think this graph is going to really help people understand why chording has not gone mainstream. So here I've got every single chorded input device or input method graphed on these 3 axes. We have our origin here, our y-axis is intuitiveness, my x-axis here is adaptability, and the z-axis here is our speed. So microchording is down here on the minimally intuitive, it is minimally fast, and it is also highly adaptable. Chronologically speaking, the microwriter here is about 100 years after the invention of the typewriter and stenograph, and about a decade after the modern keyboard. So we're right at the dawn of the computing age here. And I think this device is a really good one to look into to understand microchording and also to understand why microchording never took off. This is the handbook here, 1982, and we have 6 buttons, so 2 to the 6th, 64 different possible input combinations. So we have enough for our entire alphabet as well as some special characters, not quite as much as a full-size keyboard, but this will show you these little diagrams how difficult this is going to be to learn and get people to actually adopt. So here we have the letter X. You type by hitting all except your index. They have all these mnemonics they've built in to try and help people learn, but of course this never took off because it rates very low in the intuitive spot here, almost the lowest of all of the input methods. And even if you're some prodigy who learns to be really good with a microwriter, you're still going to be crazy slow because of what we established already with the staccato tax. And even if you were to ignore all of that, microchording is still pretty awful as a generic input device because it requires you to sacrifice the press and release key behavior that we've all become accustomed to in modern computing. So things like layered key maps, hotkeys, shortcuts in your favorite software, movement in games, or any other overlapping inputs, all of this needs to be reworked. And it's not technically impossible, it's just practically impossible. If you look at a stenowriter, for instance, which like a microwriter uses microchording to output individual letters, well, unlike a microwriter, it has millions of possible chord combinations. So the only thing stopping you from chording everything is perhaps your own sanity. If you really want to have custom chords for press and release behavior on every possible key, and you want to use it for coding and gaming and anything else that a keyboard can do, you can do that. But I think it's important to recognize that at the end of that long and arduous journey, you are unfortunately going to be less efficient compared to an ordinary typist anytime that you are microchording, no matter what device you're using. This is why I believe so strongly that if we're ever going to bring the awesome power of chording to the masses, it is absolutely essential that we offer people parity with the devices they're already used to using. At Caracorder, we did not invent chording. All that we've done is married it to character entry. The name Caracorder is an embodiment of the philosophy that neither character entry or chorded entry are more important than one another, but rather that both of those things should be working in harmony together. Not only does this mean we no longer have to chord everything, Not only does this give us a workaround for staccato tax, not only does this eliminate the need for microchording completely and offer parity with the devices they are already using, it also helps us address the biggest and the most important reason why chording is awful. One of the most common responses when people are exposed to camcorder devices for the first time is, wow, that's really cool, but it also looks really complicated. Or they compare it to some sort of new form of stenography. But nothing could be further from the truth. It is true that most chording methods are going to make you feel like you're taking 100 steps backwards before you can take one step forwards. And I think this channel in particular does an excellent job at capturing that sentiment that I felt, and I know so many others have felt when trying to adopt chording as an ordinary keyboard user.
Let's do my first typing test with this thing. Nothing's coming out. It doesn't work. I had to install the software. It's been 3-ish hours. Pretty overwhelmed still. I can't even go on Amazon right now. It's crazy.
Evening update. So I know where all of the letters are in the keyboard, but there's still so many things missing. Like I and M and N. Where are these letters? Unfortunately, I'm not far enough into the learning process to even get to learning that. It's not automatic at all. There's no muscle memory. There's no anything.
It's the end of day 1. I'm super tired. I'm gonna call it a day. Sleep. Hopefully my brain will actually remember the things that I learned today. The expectations are pretty low, but good night, keyboard. Today is looking a little bit disappointing, less than optimal. The fastest I can do is 17 words per minute, and that's with really easy words. It's just hard.
Yeah, she's really funny. I always wished she would do a camcorder review. Maybe someday.
Right.
It's currently 7:30 p.m. This is the final stretch, like 30 more minutes. See how fast I can get, and after this, I am done. My brain is...
I cannot emphasize enough how powerful it is to be able to learn something intuitively over time. The moment when you're learning something new that it becomes additive rather than diminishing your productivity, that's a very exciting and invigorating moment. I don't need to sit here and say, I promise after years of hard work, it'll all pay off, because with camcorder, you can experience that excitement and you can benefit from it the same day you take it out of the box. And I really think that's the big difference between camcorder and a lot of the things that have come before it. With camcorder, chording is not a chore. It's never something that you're in a place where you are forced to do it. When chording becomes something you want to do, then it feels good to chord. It becomes fun to chord. And I believe that expanding your horizons, expanding your own capability is something that should be really, really fun. So most camcorder demonstrations that go viral are probably demonstrations typing at insane speeds. But I think in a lot of ways, this can actually do a disservice to beginners, because beginners will better understand how this thing actually works by seeing it typing at a beginner's level. So let's pretend I've never chorded before. I just plugged in this camcorder Lite for the first time. I've been using a QWERTY keyboard for the last 10 years, and this is a demonstration for you. I can type on it the exact same way I would normally type. And while there is a beautiful web-based GUI to help configure your device, while there is software to help you learn the basics of chording, it's all purely optional. So as a new user, whenever I'm ready to start chording, I just start chording. Instead of hitting T-H-I-S in order, I hit all those letters at the same time. And of course, at some point, very quickly, I'm going to come across a word that I don't know a chord for that. And I have options. I can either just keep typing that the same way that I want and sprinkle in whatever ratio of characters to chord I feel like, or I can define a new chord right on the spot. So I just say, that's what I want my output to be. That's what I want my input to be. And what's so cool about this is very quickly, somebody who's only been using this device for like 5 minutes, very feasibly can be typing entire sentences faster than they would on an ordinary keyboard. Camcorder devices are something that anybody can pick up, regardless of their age, regardless of their typing experience, and start benefiting from it almost immediately. There is no easier way to get started with chording, and there's no disadvantage to having your keyboard be a chording-enabled device. One of the things that I love the most about Camcorder is that it is layout and theory agnostic. And of course, all of the chording devices that I've covered in this video have had a huge influence on the development of Camcorder. And one of my hopes is that all of the input devices, all of the past chording input devices that maybe have gone extinct or have become very niche, are no longer being manufactured, that they can live on in some capacity through Camcorder, even if not through their own embedded hardware device, which is possible with Camcorder Engine, perhaps through the development of chording theories or even custom layouts, which are very easy to configure on any Camcorder device. That's all for this week's video. If you think of any other reasons why chording is awful, feel free to drop them in the comments. Hopefully this video didn't turn you off of chording, but did help you understand the honest limitations of it and how we can take the best of many different types of input methods and use them all together. We've recently had a bunch of new people coming into the channel, so I want to take a moment to welcome you all, to thank you for subscribing, and also to invite you to come hang out with us on our live streams that we do every Friday at noon here at the factory. I'll drop the link in the description of this video. Moving forward, that's going to be a substitute for my weekly update videos. I want to focus this year on having higher production quality videos and putting a lot more effort and substance into them, even if they're not being released on a weekly basis. Many more big updates coming soon that I can't wait to share with you guys, and we're going to keep it going until the whole world can type at the speed of thought.